2025 outlook for corn and wheat markets. So it's a pleasure to have you all here with us today. I'm Thais Italiani, responsible for the Market Intel team, and here with myself is Inácio Spínola, our specialist for wheat and corn. So let's start the webinar. Just a reminder that inside Zoom we have the Q&A tool, so feel free to send comments and questions through that tool. By the end, we're gonna answer and will be a room for us to interact. The webinar is also being recorded, so will be available for you to check it later. And other calls as well are available already inside Hub for sugar and ethanol that happened yesterday. And last week we had for soybean and oilseeds, and also for coffee. All the recordings are already available for you to check in case you didn't attend for them. As I mentioned, Nas and I, we are presenting the call today. By the afternoon, Luis will join us for the Portuguese session. So let's start showing the content that we have inside Hub. This is an initiative in our platform, the HedgePoint Hub. There, more than the Market Intel content, we also have courses available and specific tools for hedging. So our HedgePoint customers are already using that tool. When it comes to Market Intel, we have dashboard, market analysis. Every month we have a call like this for us to interact, to share our view in the market, and not just for corn and wheat, but also for sugar, cocoa, coffee, energy, macroeconomics, and soybean. For corn especially, we have different reports available inside HedgePoint Hub. If you didn't check it out, please join us there. So reports regarding South America, crop progress, farm selling, funds position, numbers from United States, all those contents available inside HedgePoint Hub. And when it comes to courses, we have different courses regarding hedging tools. So it will be a pleasure to see you there in our HedgePoint Hub. More than this, we also have some masterclass available. So with Renata and with Serdar, the content is available inside Hub, some free content as well. And let's go to corn and wheat to see what we are expecting and how 2025 tend to be. We have many question marks already in the room, so let's discuss about that. To start, we bring a macro overview to see which are the aspects that we need to monitor during the year. And then we go through corn, wheat, and a composition, what we are seeing as bull and bears for those two markets. When it comes to macro overview, the big picture is that finally global inflation is giving us signals that they are declining. So we are not more in that stage when it comes to the beginning of 2022 with inflation going up and not seeing a perspective when it starts going down. It's already started, but we need to highlight that is more to develop economies like United States and Europe than when it comes to Brazil, India, and China. So this adds us some difference when it comes to those two economies, especially when looking to the dollar index. It previously kind of anticipated some uncertainties to the new government in the United States, and dollar index start going up. Then what we saw is that the market realized that the change won't be that fast as expected in the beginning, or as market was concerned. And we need to remember that the Fed is already signing that even though they keep the interest rates the same the last minute, they are not expecting hikes during 2025. So the overall picture is showing a little bit of softness for the dollar index, and we need to connect that to Brazil, especially when you talk about corn and our winter corn that are more oriented to exports. We see the BRL going down. So we are seeing, when it comes to international market, a little bit of pressure to the currency, to our exchange rate, and this reduced the exchange rate from Brazil from the record highs in the end of the year for now something close to 5.7, 5.8. What is driving the market that way? So when looking to the Fed funds target rate, it's like stabilized, we probably declining, while in Brazil, the scenario is in the opposite direction. So the Selic interest rate here is increasing. So this gap is incentivizing more dollars to come inside Brazil, and this has been incentivize our currency. On the other hand, we cannot forget the fact that Brazilian economy is not that healthy. So we tend to see some issues when it comes to total debt to some policy inside our local government. So this is the point for us to keep monitoring during the year. Other aspect that we cannot forget is the trade war when it comes to United States and China. So right now, 2 months of Trump's government, what we are seeing is that tariffs are being imposed more, of course, several countries, but oriented more to China. And for now, coffee and ethanol were the first ones reached for that tariff when it comes to grains, and nothing much new already appearing on the game, but we need to continue monitor. And when it comes to ethanol, we also need to remember that Trump's government is more oriented to oil, to crude oil, than to biofuels. So somehow it disincentivize a little bit the consumption for corn, for ethanol. We're gonna detail it a little more in few slides. Other geopolitical aspect that we need to monitor very closely is the Black Sea War. So we are seeing now with the new government in the United States, Trump trying to, we cannot say help, but try to manage that conflict and position himself more oriented to some Russia somehow. So the point here is that we need to monitor, are the critical mineral deposits across Ukraine. They are kind of fighting for some control of some key areas in that country. So the big picture here is that it's not something easy to solve. It's not something that, okay, they are planning to interview and ending the war, but also we need to take into account, and Inácio gonna highlight this in some slides ahead, that won't be that easy to come back to the produce size of the crops there, for example. So we need to monitor that very closely. And for that as well, I'd like to invite you all for next week to join Chris Traint, our head of agriculture in the United States. We have a webinar dedicated to that topic to discuss what you're seeing, what can we expect when it comes to the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. Here's the QR code for you to subscribe, and also it's available inside the Headpoint Hub. Coming back to corn and wheat, especially right now, what's going on, we need to remember that February and until April, we are persisting the pattern for La Niña. So La Niña tends to bring lower temperatures, as highlighted here for Russia and Australia. So key points of attention for wheat. When it comes to precipitation, we need to continue monitor South America because of the corn. So the corn in Argentina and the corn being planted in Brazil. A little bit more concern for Argentina than for Brazil. We're gonna explain a little bit more. But this is the picture until April. And then between April and May, we need to monitor the neutral partner that will be drawn by that time. And it's also an issue because when it's a neutral partner, we cannot actually really forecast how it's going to perform. And we need to remember that winter corn in Brazil was delayed because of the delay in soybean planting. So we'll be in key months for corn in Brazil. So weather will be a key topic for the corn market. This is the point that I was mentioning. So right now, for Brazil, we are harvesting the some corn more oriented to the domestic market, and we are planting the winter corn, very concentrated window because of the delay in soybean. So April, the second half of April, especially May, will be key for developing the winter corn in Brazil. And for Argentina, they're about to start harvesting their corn. So all the attention is looking there to see how much the crop, how will the crop perform, if it will be 50 million metric tons or less. And for United States, the big question now will be this week, by the end of this week, the first figures for the new crop that we're going to start planting in April. And by the end of March, the first plantation report. So we're going to discuss a little bit more how prices are fighting between soybean and corn and which area farmers, American farmers, will tend to plant. The big picture for corn is easy for us to see here, is the fact that China came out with a better crop than expected. So they are reducing their imports for the current crop. We're talking about here 24-25. The big question market will be the exports from Brazil, 46 million metric tons. Even though the United States is going to a record of exports for corn, the world is really relying that amount exported from Brazil and from Argentina. So to monitor how will be the real production in Brazil and Argentina are key in the coming months until the half of the year this year. So let's detail a little bit more about China and how we are seeing the consumption there and why they are reducing the imports. When it comes to China, corn is mainly oriented to pigs, to hog production. Right now, the monthly inventory is super high. They are facing good momentum for pigs, for the pig industry, margins on the positive side of the equation. This has been incentivizing slaughter. You can see here the blue line. So they are in a good momentum for corn, for domestic consumption, for corn, for the pig industry. Checking the supply-demand equation for them, we see a good production being reported right there. So close to 295 million metric tons, much better than last year. And this is incentivizing them to reduce the amount imported. Of course, it's not only because of this, it's also because they need to reduce a little bit more their dependence in the international market, like being more conservative, reducing the amount imported, and this adds to the bearish side of the equation when it comes to corn in the international market. Of course, even though they are producing more, they are also consuming more. So the equation relies on lower ending stocks. It's a record ending stocks, used to be record, not that bigger as in the past, but still very comfortable stock use ratio here, 65% for China. So the point of attention right now for China is the pace of consumption, and the question if they really will be only 10 million metric tons imported, or if they will need more. The corn for prices, so when you compare different origins, we are seeing right now Brazil a little bit back to the game, but only when it comes to price, not on volume, because the summer corn in Brazil is more oriented to the domestic market. So we need to wait until the middle of the year to check the winter corn harvest. And Argentina as well, prices getting a little bit more competitive. So South America starting to come inside the room to the corn market. When it comes to United States, as I highlighted, the 24-25 crop, they came out with a surprise in January for the entire market, with a reduction in the crop, in the size of the crop. Something weird here is the fact that yield is the record one in the history of the United States. So we need to monitor from now on until September how gonna be the quarterly grain stocks, because once they realize that the crop is not that level, with a little bit bigger than this, they're gonna start reporting bigger stocks, and then the disappearance line in their supply and demand will start to show up a little bit more than expected. Analyzes that the production is a little bit bigger than what they forecasted in January. So this is the big topic for United States when it comes to a old crop, 24-25. This one that we are right now that they harvested. So in case they start checking the fields and seeing that they have available in the economy more corn stocked than what they were forecasting, in the production equation, they have a line here in the demand consumption, other demand consumption called disappearance, where they could start showing a little bit more corn, showing us that the production was underestimated. But this is the picture, and this is what price CBOT is pricing right now. So a stock use close to 10%, lower than what we had last year. And when you compare the past 20 years and check here the stock use versus the price in September, we see that this level right now, 10% of stock use in the United States, should drive prices a little bit bigger, something more close to $5. So this is a topic for us to monitor. So we tend to see, looking the US supply demand scenario, that prices, they have a little bit of room to increase. And this connected, directed to some topic that I'm gonna highlight later, that is the fight for area for next cycle. Right now, when we are monitoring demand, we need to monitor exports from United States because it's a big line of consumption for them. Back here to the supply demand, we can see exports in a good momentum. They are forecasting an increase year over year of 7%. Right now, we are better than the average for the period, kind of half of it are very shipped and just compromised. So we are still confident that United States will reach this forecast that USDA highlighted, especially the last weeks performing pretty well when it comes to export sales. And looking to the next cycle, then comparing soybean and corn, the contracts for November and December, we are seeing the ratio incentivizing a little bit more corn than soybean. And as I highlighted, the soybean call is not because the corn market is like very optimistic, it's because it's less worse than the soybean market. Those two markets are under many concerns with the new government because of the policy that they have been adopting, especially for corn, disincentivizing ethanol, that is an important line of consumption for corn in the United States. But what we see now, this ratio incentivizing more acreage for corn than for soybean, we tend to see for the next cycle a gap a little bit bigger, similar to what we had for 2011. So this is the point of attention. This is what we need to monitor by the end of March with the first prospective planting intention report from United States. And now let's see how Brazil is performing and what can we expect for winter corn. When it comes to Brazil, the overall picture for corn, so consider summer corn and winter corn, is of a crop close to 126 million metric tons. This is the number from United States, USDA. We are better confident with this number, better than CONAB 1. So we are expecting yield similar to what we had last year and an increase in area, basically because of the increase in soybean area. So farmers rotate the area from summer to winter with corn. The picture for Brazil with this level of production will rely with a very short ending stocks because of the strong consumption when it comes to exports and also to domestic market. For domestic market, huge consumption for feed, very good protein industry performing this year in Brazil, and also very good consumption for corn ethanol, this new industry here in Brazil, demanding a lot of corn for 24-25 cycle this year. Market is expecting something close to 21 million metric tons of corn oriented to produce ethanol. For exports, this record exports for Brazil and close to good levels from 21-22. It will happen in the second half of the year. So right now we are in the summer corn crop being harvested, so very oriented to the domestic market, as I highlighted. And then July, August, September tend to be key months for exports in Brazil, and then we'll monitor that performance right there. But to reach there, we need to check how production will perform. This is what I highlighted regarding domestic consumption. Animal consumption, core for animal consumption is the big line in Brazil, and now ethanol is starting showing up. So the market is changing, the basis market, local prices are changing because of this industry that is performing here in Brazil that is started more strong 2-3 years ago. Where is this industry? So this picture is very useful for us to highlight it, that right now we have 22 plants for biofuel operating for ethanol corn based, and we have 90 under construction and 12 projects already approved to be constructed. So this is a strong industry being stabilized in Brazil, and they will demand more corn for produce ethanol, and this will compete directly with exports, Brazilian corn exports, especially Mato Grosso, where the math is more oriented to the domestic market nowadays with that industry being stabilized there. The picture for the winter corn crop, the planting place, we already closed the gap in the beginning because of the stress that we had with soybean, and now we are very close to the average. So more than 50% of the winter corn area planted. Planting is performing well, but the topic is that the window was very tight, so more area planted at the same time. This will give us more area exposed to weather issues at the same period as well by the end of April and during May. What can we expect regarding weather? So far, this current week, the next 7 days, a little bit of attention for Mato Grosso, so maybe some delay for planting there, the big producer in the country, but the other regions performing well with not much bigger rains for there. And in the second week, the picture is a little bit better. This is when it comes to the pace of planting, and now checking how the crop tends to develop. This is an important point of attention because the picture for rains for April and May is indicating us lower precipitation. So this is the point of attention when it comes to the yield potential for winter corn in Brazil. And also higher temperature, especially in April. So this will demand us special attention for this region in the country. As I highlighted, while the summer corn has been harvested and entered the market, it has been pressure basis, even though that volume is not oriented to export, but it's pressuring the basis in Brazil, pressuring. Now let's check how Argentina is performing, and then Ukraine. For that, I will invite Ignacio. Please, Ignacio, feel free.
Thank you very much, Thais. Hi, everyone. Okay, let's go first with Argentina, as Thais was saying. For Argentina, what we saw was a cut on the USDA production number for the month of February. They are printing right now a 50 millimetric ton. Bolsa Rosario is already mentioning, is already discussing a lower number. Usually USDA has a little delay on the production numbers for Argentina. The best example was last year where they had this disease called chicharrita, which was a bug that was affecting the crop. So again, most probably that 50 millimetric ton is a number too optimistic, and the final number is going to be closer to what the Bolsa Rosario is saying. Why? Because of the current weather events where they had a December, January, and up to the middle of February with a lot of temperature and lack of rains. Now, as we are going to see on further parts of the PPT, we are going to see that they are already receiving some showers, some rains, which should ease or reduce the damage. But we do believe that the Bolsa Rosario is right on cutting a little bit that number and printing somewhere around 46, 45 millimetric tons. Thank you, Thais. As we were saying, probably the production for the 24-25 campaign is going to be lower. These numbers, as we mentioned here, coming from the USDA, which is what we use as a reference, and it's basically what Chicago also uses as a reference. What is interesting to see is they are printing a little increase on the export side of 36 million metric tons. Clearly, if you are going to receive a lower production, so again, if that number from 50 goes down, you should be adjusting it at least on the export side. And as you can see there, the final number, the end stock number, it's not so big. It's just 2.8. That's a 6% stock use. So basically, they are just using the vast majority of the production either for exports or for domestic or feed use. And when we see the numbers on the right there, what we can see there is basically the farmers selling pace. Overall, is pricing wise is going at the same level, just 1% above last year, but the selling pace is lower, 16% versus 22% on 23, 24. So we are still waiting to see when the farmer is going to wake up and start selling. One thing what you mentioned in the case of Argentina, reduction in terms of taxes that the president has basically announced it. It's been 2-3 weeks since this news came out. That reduction is going to take until the end of June, and that should boost the exports on corn, wheat, soybean oil as well. And so the point here is that clearly, if you're going to have a reduction on taxes for the exporters, they will want to buy more from the farmers to get the availability of the good and then therefore to export them, right? So we should see some increase on farmer selling pace in the next weeks, followed by what we said and the prices in Chicago, which have been pretty good actually over the last month. Regarding the vegetation index or the NDVI index, we are on similar levels versus the previous years. On the Pampa, Northwest and North regions, they are closer to what it was in 2024. We are a little bit above the Cuyo area, which is a good news, and it's inside that range of the last years, which is a gray area. So for now, there are no issues in terms of vegetation. We are not on the best case scenario, but we are not on the worst case. We're just in the middle point. So there's nothing to be concerned for now. As we were saying regarding the comments on the drought and now with the recent rains, we are gonna see some rain, especially on the nuclear region. For the next 1 to 7 days, and then after that, so 8 to 14 days, we will continue seeing rains, but not as big as the next forthcoming days. These rains that we're going to be experiencing from now to the next 7 days could also generate some flooding issues with the crop. So it's important to keep an eye on and continue monitor, because at the end of the day, you're moving from a big lack of rains, and then like 1 week after you experience a lot of rain. So sometimes the lack of water can damage the crop, and sometimes the excess of water can damage too. So again, that's why we are constantly trying to monitor and update and check the numbers regarding the crop, because it's a delicate stage of the crop right now for Argentina. When we check on what's going to happen for March and April, values for Argentina are inside the normal range, as you can see there on the red circle, either for March or April. We can expect a little bit above normal, which is that green zone, green color for the map, but I mean, that's not going to generate any major issue. for March and April. But again, these are maps that you're forecasting for 30, 60, 70 days. And as we all know, the weather can change a lot, but at least gives us an overall idea or just a quick view, then clearly you need to monitor it. Now we're gonna talk a little bit more about Ukraine, which I guess is a big question mark for corn and wheat, Ukraine and Russia. What we are showing here is a graph that basically puts all the information regarding production, harvest, and yield. What is interesting to mention here is the increase on the area harvested. Since the war started, we are around 4.2 million hectares in terms of area harvested, while pre-war levels were at 5.5. So that's a big decrease, which clearly is affecting the end number, the final number in terms of production. If you compare 21-22 campaign with a final production number of 42.1 million metric tons, and then you compare it to 23-24 with similar or even a little bit better yield, but the decrease in the area harvest clearly affects the final production number, and that's why you got around 10 million metric ton less in terms of production. For this campaign, for the 24-25, what we have is a lower yield versus last year, or even versus the last 3 years in terms of yield. That's 646, same area harvest as the last 2 years, and therefore you're going to have a lower crop, which is situated around 26 million metric tons. But again, one of the issues, and we are going to talk a little bit more after this PPT about it, is the fact that the available land is getting reduced due to the war, and then you will have an issue, because if the war ends, the demining process, so the process or the time that takes you to put all the land in condition, take away the mines and make it safe for people to work on it or cultivate it or plant it, it's gonna take more than just 1 or 2 years. So potentially that decrease of that 1.4 million hectares that we lost in terms of availability, it's going to take some time to get it back and to recover it. When we look at the numbers, again, coming from the USDA, the lack of production, as we already mentioned, is the production is going to be lower, basically due to the decrease on the yields. And therefore, those 6 million metric tons less that we are going to be having in terms of production, so from 32 to 26, they're going to go against the exports, right? Because you're going to be moving from 21.5 to 22. So basically, the decrease on the production gets translated into the export side. When you look at how the exports are performing this year, which is a blue line that is pointed out there, you can see that it's working below the average of the last 5-6 years, which is a gray area, and also below the numbers of last year, which makes sense regarding the availability and the last issues in terms of frost and weather that we have been experiencing in that area. And we're going to see that more clearly in a few slides where we present the weather map. Next slide, please, Thais. So now we're going to move to wheat, and we are going to continue talking about Russia and Ukraine, just to follow the same reasoning on the same line. For wheat side, as you can see here, which is the crop calendar, we are not in either a harvest or a planting phase. But the recent frost, the recent cold weather in Russia, as we are going to see in a few slides, it is affecting the wheat crop, even though, again, we are not on a planting phase right now. We are not on a harvest phase for any of the countries. Still, the weather is playing a key role, and it can damage the production, the yields, and the final numbers at the end of the day. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is the world S&D, supply and demand. What we can see here is first regarding the EU and Russia, we are moving from 135 million metric tons on the European Union production and 91 million metric tons on Russia into 121 million metric tons for 24-25 campaign and 81 million metric tons for the production in Russia. Russian production is mainly affected due to weather, same as the EU. That decrease in production is being translated into a decrease in the export side. That's why Russia export moved from 55 to 45, and the EU exports moved from 38 to 28. So again, the decrease in production is directly linked to a decrease in the export. What is interesting to remark as well is that in terms of production, when you look at the world number, we are moving from 791 on 23-24 to 793 on 24-25. So that means basically that the reduction in Europe and Russia is being offset by little increases, 4-5 million metric tons more in the US, 3 in Argentina, 6 in Australia. The Middle East is increasing by 2 million metric tons of production. So it's getting offset by the big decrease that is happening right now in Russia and in Europe. And also it's kind of interesting to remark that for Ukraine, there's no reduction in production. So it's kind of surprising in terms that it's just in the middle between the two biggest countries or groups in the case of the EU, and the two of them are being affected by the reduction in the production, but the Ukrainian production is not being affected. Next slide, please, Dave. Thank you. Regarding fall parities, what we see here is basically the upriver prices and the German wheat parity prices are competing and are the cheapest ones in the market right now, while the French wheat is the most expensive number, which makes sense due to the reduction of the production. We also need to remember that last year the EU crop was not good as well, so you get less production, and that translates into a lack of availability in terms of physical and increase in the fall. But again, Argentina is competing and is calculating, and is right now the cheapest wheat in terms of for prices. And clearly, you need to add the freight component. But right now, Argentina is calculating and is competing into the Maghreb area, into the Africa area, and into Asia as well. All right, so basically what we are showing here is the actual export corridor that Ukraine has. Due to the war, Ukraine has lost the port of Nikolaev, which used to be 50-60% of their overall export capacity. Right now they are using POC ports of Privierny, Odessa, and Chornomorsk ports for Panamax-sized vessels, which is 65K plus minus 10%. And then they are either exporting from smaller ports through coastal vessels, so again 3 to 9,000 tons, or they move all the grain into Romania and they export it through the Constanța port, which is located there near the frontier where it says Ukraine grain corridor. So again, they lost a lot of capacity, and that's why they are struggling with these kind of logistic issues. Next slide, please, Thais. Thank you. So again, Ukraine, as we were mentioning on the first slide that we were talking about wheat production for this year, no big changes. The ending stocks are going to be bigger. They are growing from 0.7 to 1.3. And that growth in the ending stocks goes basically for increasing the stock use, which was decreased a lot on the 23-24 campaign. I mean, if you look at the previous year, they were with 22% of stock use for 21-22, then they went to 12 for 22-23. They basically sold everything that they sold the vast majority of the stocks of last year, and they will eventually finish a year with a 6% this year. Again, all going well, and assuming things don't change, which in this particular case, as we are all aware, things are changing day by day. In terms of production, same case as we were mentioning on the corn. So we see on the graph on the right that basically the availability of area has decreased a lot since the war started, from 7.4, 6.8, 7, 7.4 into a 5.6, 5.2. So that's why, and that is what explains the reduction in terms of the production number. Because at the end of the day, the yield numbers, yes, on 22-23, they were lower, they were at 384, but then when you get to similar yield numbers as, for example, the 21-22 campaign with 446, and you see that this year is at 4.4, previous year was at 4.59, the only reason for the lower production is basically the availability of land that they have to plant and then therefore harvest and produce. Next slide, please. Thank you. So when you look at the exports right now and this year, they are running at a better pace versus 23-24. We are in the lower part of the range, and the map on the right basically is just to show where the ports are. We have highlighted with a cross the Nicolayan port, because again they are not using anymore. It got damaged by some Russian attacks 1 year and a half ago, and then on the left you have the other 3 ports that are available right now, which are Priveni, Odessa, and Chomorotsk. Next slide, please, Thais. Thank you. When we move to Russia, there is a reduction in production from 91 million metric tons to 81. Therefore, you have that, as we were saying, that translates into a reduction in the exports. The main reason is the current cold weather that is affecting the actual crop, especially on winter wheat crop, which represents 72% of the total wheat output from Russia. Contrary to Ukraine, and obviously they didn't got any damage in terms of their area harvested, and that's why we don't see a big decrease in terms of production. The decrease in this case for Russia comes more on the yield side and on the weather damage rather than on the area available and we can say the war damage. In terms of exports are better than the last 10 years. We got a little bit above the blue line, which was last year, but right now we are in the same spot. So export-wise, things are going very well. Weather-wise, as we were saying, they are experiencing some very cold weather. We should ease in the next days and in the next weeks, but right now we are still and analysts are still trying to evaluate how much of the crop has been damaged due to the cold weather. Because at the end of the day, when you have too much cold, that can burn the plants and the crop, and clearly that affects the yield that we have. And that's why we are expecting a lower production. Next slide, please, Thais. Thank you. Regarding corn-wheat ratio, we are right now at around 0.85, 86. As we are highlighting there, basically when you got a ratio about let's say 0.90 to 1 or above 1. What you want to do is basically plant more wheat and less corn. And when you get a ratio below 0.60, you rather plant more corn and reduce your wheat. That is clearly reflected on the graph that we were looking with when Thais was talking regarding the area available, the area that that the farmer in US uses for corn versus wheat, and how that swings. And finally, bulls and bears. Thank you, Thais. Regarding CBOT, this is a net hedge fund position for corn, soft red wheat, and hard red wheat. On the first one, on the left, on the corn side, funds have been building a long position, which is contrary to their strategy during almost full 2024, at least until the last 2 months in 2024, where they were having a very short position. Right now, they are around 190, 180,000 contracts long. Regarding wheat, they are continuing with a bearish view. On soft red wheat, they got even lower versus the last 5 years average, and the hard red wheat, they are a little bit above what was the lower end on the 5-year average. So this clearly is for corn a bullish strategy, because they're building along, and for wheat they have a bearish view, and that is what gets reflected, or the conclusion that we can get on the position on CBOT, which is going to be the same conclusion that we get on the next slide, where we're going to be showing the Matif position with a long a net long position on corn and a net short position on wheat. Both of them are inside the range of the 5 years. Clearly, on Matif, being a smaller market, the amount of contracts for corn are not the same as CBOT, but it does reflect a direction and an expectation in terms of their net position.
Yeah, thank you, Nelson.
Yeah, and now I'll leave it with Thais, who's going to be finishing with the final conclusions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And also reinforcing that we have the Q&A. So feel free to send us questions for us to interact in few minutes. To summarize, as Ignacio was highlighting, the funds increase their composition while maintain the short view on wheat. So this is the overall picture for CBOT and Matif. So how those two commodities tend to perform, especially when you check the ratio, like incentivizing the consumption for one then another. They are kind of complementary somehow, and also we can exchange the amount of corn and wheat in some feed mills. Also, we need to monitor the Trump's economy policy, and especially the Black Sea conflict. That's why we are reinforcing the invitation for the webinar next week. We're gonna have more details in that topic. And separating the bullish and bearish aspects, we are more a little bit more to the bearish side of the equation, because even though we're still very seeing a big question marker for weather, for the bullish side of the equation, especially when it comes to snow cover, winter key risks for the winter wheat, we are seeing reduction in Russian wheat, winter wheat production. In the bearish side, we're more oriented to pay attention to some aspects when it comes to the Black Sea conflict, probably ending soon, how market tend to react to this news or to new dynamic that change to be in the room this year, probably. Also, the fact that China is reducing its buying appetite, like trying to reduce the size of their exposure in the international market. And when it comes to United States, the big pressure will be the increasing area for corn planting in the end of March, with the acreage intention for United States. So this is the overall picture that we are seeing for corn and wheat. And